Hey kids, welcome to another episode of Glen YAPS. Been a while since I've done one of these. Just really busy. So I'm kind of revisiting the topic of in-ear monitors for drummers. I've been using them for 6-7 years, and I've come across some problems. Not so much with the in-ears themselves, but just the mixing part of it and bleed from the other instruments on stage. And when I'm talking bleed, I'm going to separate that into two categories. So I'm going to try and make this as brief as possible. So when I switched to in-ears, I went through a whole bunch of videos on YouTube and articles trying to find the best for my needs. And many of the reviews focused on these KZs, I believe they are, which is what I use. These inexpensive but high quality in-ears. So my first experience, or should say second experience, was with those. My first one was with a band that just said, here, try these, and put them in, and they were absolutely the worst piles of crap I ever heard in my life. The drums sounded like I was hitting glass. I had no control over volume, had no control over EQing. It was all done by someone else. That you do not want. That is scary. Your hearing is in the hands of somebody else. That is not good. You have to find a way to get full control. I've done videos on that on my YouTube channel. So search out what I use for the whole system where I can control it. But anyways, back to this. I got the KZs, love them. I think I paid $28 for these on Amazon. I'm still using the same pair, and I love them. Where the problem comes in, most in-ears do bleed stage volume. So they knock down the dBs roughly like a normal earplug. They bring down the overall volume around you anywhere from 25 to 30. I've seen some even higher, 37 dB. That's a good thing. Nothing is 100%. But say if I'm practicing in the basement and I use them, it brings down that whole drum volume down. You can control the in-ears and EQ it. And on stage, you can enjoy normally, in a normal situation, drum fidelity at a lower volume, and your drums don't sound like cardboard boxes, because quite honestly, drums on themselves, when you're playing them on stage, sound horrible. I personally don't like that sound, never did. So I was always trying to find some ways to at least warm that sound up. And I won't get into that, but in-ears definitely help. So I can EQ it and bring warmth into the drums and just EQ them to my liking. So while you do get bleed through the silicone tips on the in-ears, you can switch those to foamies. I just ordered a bunch of foam types to experiment with to block out even more of the surrounding sound or bleed through the actual tips on the in-ears. But here's the major issue I've come across, especially in the last year. In my case, I'm a vocalist along with being a drummer, and my band has 3 singers that also play musical instruments. We have guitar, electric, we have guitar acoustic, and bass, all vocals. So, smaller stages where I normally play. So in my own mix, I have my own mixer set up. I can control each person's vocal into my in-ears, can control how much guitar, thin limit, and how much bass and how much acoustic guitar. The problem started about a year ago. We changed bass players who had a drastically different sound, a louder sound, and it affected our normal stage volume. We were not a quiet band to start with, but it just changed the dynamic. So what I found, my evaluation for the last year, because I've been going insane this last year with volume increases, sound bleed, and whatnot else. So I've been experimenting and finding out what the cause of this is. So here's the deal, in my particular case, and I'm sure it's happening to others. You mic your drum set up. Some cases you put an overhead mic, maybe two, and you mic your whole drum set into separate channels on your mixer. In my case, I can control all my drum sounds, each one, and you get a beautiful sound, totally enjoyable, and it helps me play at a lower volume. This last year, with the change in personnel, that got thrown out the window. What ended up happening is the volume increase on stage started to bleed into my drum microphones. And people go, well, just turn the drums up. And that'll get rid of that, just turn the drums up. Well, the whole point of in-ears is to protect your hearing, not to increase the volume and blow your hearing out. Because believe me, in-ears, if you're not careful and you put too much into it, you will damage your hearing. It may be quick and it may be slow, but that constant increase in volume is not good. You want to be in a safe zone, right? So, what's happening is the increased volume of the stage from the bass and the guitar and the vocals is bleeding into the drum microphones. The drum microphones are picking up the drums, but they're picking up the volume increases of their instruments. So I've been bitching. It says, you guys got to turn down. So then they say, well, I'm too loud. It says, but I haven't been too loud for 6 years. What's the change? Your volumes have changed. Whether tonality or whatever, it's bleeding into the drum mics. So I've been experimenting. For weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So I have everybody on a separate track. I have each individual vocal, the guitar is separate, the bass, and that. So I started playing around with this. So throughout the weeks, I basically turned volumes down of the bass, turned it right off. Made absolutely no difference. Why is that? Because the bass player, while even running with in-ears, still runs a bass amp on stage. That bass amp is still at a higher volume, bleeds into my drum mics. So the experiment was, well, I'll bring my drum mics down, and guess what? I can't hear my drums, and I can still hear the bass. Why can I still hear the bass? Because the bass on stage is bleeding into now the silicone earbud part of the in-ears. So there's two negatives. Either the volume is too high and it bleeds into through the seal on the in-ears, or if I have my drums up, I can't hear my drums, but if I bring the volume up, the bass and the drums are up, but also the bass guitar. My guitar player continuously says that he hasn't increased his volume. I'm experiencing the same thing. And I couldn't figure out, well, if he's at the same volume, what is the issue here? So I found out that he runs, not only runs the amp at a higher volume, or a loud volume, but he has it in his monitor. So it's shooting at him and behind him. And our vocal mics are really loud, hot. So with my experiments over the week, it's like, how is this guitar so loud in my own mix that I can't hear my drums, where a year ago I could? And he says he's never increased his volume. So what happened is I turned his guitar mic right off. Still loud. Still bleeding into my system. Still coming into my drum mics. So stage volume has to have changed, because that guitar amp is bleeding into my drum mics along with the bass. So did another experiment. I go, well, if he's got it in his monitor in front, I wonder if his vocal mic is picking up, along with his voice, is picking up the guitar coming out of the monitor. So I turned that down, turned his vocal right off, and that brought down some of the volume. It's still loud, but now I've got the guitar off, I've got his vocal mic off, I've got the bass guitar off, so I'm still getting bleed from the stage volume into my earbuds. I'm still getting all that noise into my drum mics, or it's coming in some other place. So then I started looking at the other vocal mics. So the bass guitar, I took his vocal mic out, took the lead singer out, even took my own vocal mic out. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been running no drums in my monitors, no vocals, no guitar, and no bass. So I can't hear my drums at all, because the stage volume that they play at is still bleeding in through the seals of my in-ears. And they're cutting down the volume. It's just the guys are loud. So the problem, unfortunately, revolves around stage volume. So I've even brought my stage drumming down. I've muted my cymbals. I've put foam blocks under my cymbals, so the decay is very short now. Trying to find out a way around this. So right now I'm at the unhappiest time I've ever been in, because I'm playing muted cymbals, I'm playing softer, which is where I want to be. I'm playing softer, but I can't hear myself. And now I'm singing and I'm guessing, because I can't hear my vocals. So it's a very unhappy state. So the heads up is how to get an enjoyable drum mix if your band guys are volume crazy. I don't know. I've tried to get them to turn down, and it works for maybe a set or two, and then it's right back to the volume. So all I know is my body was getting sore from trying to keep up with these guys. I just don't want to play that loud, and I've never played that loud before. It's like stupid. So I've changed my playing and brought it down, even went to a lighter stick. Muted the cymbals, but their volumes are still overpowering and still drowning everything out through bleed. So really, my in-ear monitor system now is totally shut off, and they're basically just acting as earplugs. And they actually work better than regular earplugs. I've switched back and forth. I put the foamies in and stuff, and it's still too loud. So the unfortunate part is on a smaller stage, I don't notice it as much on bigger stages, even though they're still loud, but they're spread out more. But usually on a small stage, it's unbearable for me. And there's this constant looping of sounds through the vocal mics. So it's always nice to hear your partner's voice to sing harmonies with, because I'm just a harmony singer. But the problem is it was picking up so much stage noise that it was just getting fed back into my system. And believe it or not, with my drums off, my ears were still ringing from the volume on stage. So even now that I have muted cymbals, and they're dark cymbals, I'm faced with that dilemma. So anybody out there, just a warning, to watch for that bleed. If you play with louder players, that bleed is going to come in through the drum mics. You have to think, in my case, I play a 4-piece kit normally live, so I got a mic on the tom, got a mic on the snare, got a mic on the kick, and one on the floor, and I'll run an overhead. And the overhead is for my own personal mix, so I can hear the ride cymbal patterns and some of the hi-hat patterns. So basically, it doesn't have to go to front house, it's just for my own monitoring system. So that was one of the first things I shut off, and it made no difference, except it brought down the high-end part of things. It knocked that right off. Even though I brought the volume down on it, it knocked the high end off, but the other mics were still giving you the drum sound, although the high-end fidelity was gone. But the other two instruments were still overpowering. So it doesn't matter. I brought my volume down the last 2 weeks of drumming. Nothing has changed. So everything is shut off now. So I'm basically back to earplug stage. So I've not had that in 6 years. So I know some people say, well, go full in-ear. I go, well, I'm already full in-ear, but I can't. I mean, it's everybody else's, choice. I can't make them do that. So the bass player runs in-ears plus his bass rig. And unfortunately, it's bleeding into the drum mix. The guitar player did run in-ears for whatever reason years ago, but he ran it with his amp. So the amps are still pinned, they're at their volume, and they're running in-ears. So you have powered instruments and you're still running in-ears. Very strange. Like I can see with an acoustic instrument, you have to mic it, but an electric instrument that, with megawatts of power, I don't understand that you have to run the amps as loud with your in-ears. I don't understand. But that's in their court, not mine. who am I to question? I'm only trying to survive my own issues. So, and our lead singer, well, he's acoustic. He can never hear his acoustic. He's not running in-ears. Tried them, didn't like them. So his vocal monitor is loud, and that is saturating the stage. So every other mic on stage picks that up. But that's my dilemma. That's where a lot of people are. As a drummer, we're talking drummer. The drum mics pick up the other stuff. Now, I don't know if internal miking would make a difference on that. That's an option. It's running me bucks, so man, it's like the system I have is expensive to start with. But yeah, I don't know. But others have gone through it. I've talked in some of the chat rooms, and basically they say the same thing as go ampless, but that's not my choice. But I've never had this problem even with guys with amps before. Even this band didn't have this problem before. The dynamic changed with the bass player and his sound. Definitely a different sound than everybody else that I've played with. It's very low end. I don't find it clear, so it's hard to pick out the notes. But that's his sound, so, but it's definitely troubling. So that's what you have to watch for. And without a doubt, to try and, I'm changing my dynamic totally the last 2 weeks to try and get back at a lower volume. But even though I'm playing at a lower volume and with lighter sticks, I still can't hear myself. Even when I was hitting my hitting loud to keep up with the volume of these guys, because it was just getting nuts. I couldn't hear them anyways. So I'm defeating the purpose by playing harder to keep up with them, because I can't keep up. I'm sore and I still can't hear myself, or I find them overpowering. So I changed the dynamic and brought everything down, and I'm still faced with the same problem. I can't hear the instrument I'm playing, and very frustrating. What I can't get the guys in the band to understand is, and it's really simple, your stage volume is bleeding into my drum microphones, and their first thing is, well, turn up your drums. They don't understand that their instruments are already loud in my mics. For me to turn up my drums brings their volume up because it's bleeding into my mic. I can't get them to understand this. It's so simple. If I was not playing, their guitars are bleeding into my drum mics. Without me playing, I can still hear them through my drum mics. So when I add my drums, I can't turn my drums up because it brings their bleed into crazy zones for volume. So I can't turn the drums up. If I turn my drums down, it gets rid of some of their bleed, but then I get the other bleed of the volume through the earbud part that goes in your ears, because they're still loud. So I tried regular earplugs, and the same thing. They're loud stage volume. So this is what you're faced with if you play with loud guys on a small stage. I don't know how the pros do it, but I do have isolation shields. I may try that in the near future, but man, that's a lot of work just to carry that shit around. I'd have to make 2 trips to every gig, because the van that we're in right now is to capacity for gear. So adding those things, which are like 6 or 8 shields, don't know. So, I mean, I'm sure it would help. I mean, the drums would be less for them, and whether or not it would cut their volumes, don't know. So that's the experimenting I'm going through. Like I say, not had this ever. with this in-ear system I've had. It's been flawless, been fantastic, loved it. This last year has just been absolute fucking chaos. Just everything that was good is now reversed. It's bad. Everything is bad. So I've even tried isolation headphones. Doesn't help because stuff bleeds into the mics. So I'll keep experimenting. The shields are definitely an option. They won't fit on every stage that we play. It's really tight playing quarters, though. So that's the downside of in-ears. And I mean, that goes for them too with in-ears. Bleed could come from any numbers of sources. But normally, if you're a guitar player or a singer or a bass player, you're not going to have a full drum set in your in-ears. You're going to have maybe a kick drum, which doesn't hurt your ears because it's in the low end frequencies. Just something that you can lock onto for the beat. You're not going to have a full drum set. But me, I've got a full drum set, so because I'm a drummer, I have to hear. Can you imagine if you're a guitar player and all you hear out of your 6 strings are one of the strings or 2 of the strings and you don't hear the rest? Well, that's where I'm at. When I can't hear my instrument or the parts I play, why am I there? It's not enjoyable. It's not fun at all. Now I play in other bands, I don't have this issue. No, I can drum really loud. I can. It's hard on the body. And if I get out of control, they're welcome to tell me to back off. But we're at crazy levels now. So I'm doing my part to back off and mute the cymbals and work with it that way, but I can only go so far. So I have to find a happy ground that everybody can work with. But it doesn't sound like the other guys want to. I've been working on this for a year, and each time I ask them to bring down within one set, it's back up to the volumes, and by the end of the night, it's just absolute nuts. So that affects my volume totally. I can practice down here constantly in the studio and with other bands and play nice and soft like I normally like to play. I rim shot for an accent and I can get my chops happening. But when you're playing above your comfort zone for volume, you lose all that finesse, and that's what I've found in this last year. I just can't I can't keep up with these guys volume-wise. So for, like I say, last 2 weeks, been to 3 weeks actually, I've been trying to figure something out where I can enjoy playing drums again. And so far, the only place I enjoy playing drums is down here. So that's a scoop. The plus side of the in-ears, the fidelity is beautiful. I love it. And you do not need crazy amounts of drivers in your in-ears. 3 drivers is totally fine. Anything else is a waste in my book. Waste of money, 3 drivers. Some even like just 2 drivers. It's perfectly fine with 3 as a max. All the rest, I think, is just going to hurt your hearing in the long run. And it's more for audio guys just to sit and listen. But on stage, I think it's just too much. And you got to watch that ear fatigue shit, because that'll get you quick if you're not careful. So I have got my hearing tested just recently. So I've got a little bit of tinnitus, or tinnitus, however you say it, thanks to this last year. So I'm trying to get a handle on that. My hearing is actually fine, except for a little bit of that sizzle. I've definitely lost a little bit, but they were surprised that for how long I've been playing, and especially being a drummer, how good my hearing still is. So, as for the other guys, don't know, but at least I'm on it and trying to find a way to get through the wall of sound. So that's it. That is the downside of it, with a small bit of the good side. I could never go back to playing on stage with just earplugs. I found that out this last week while I've been jamming the foamies, and I can't go back to that. They drums sound like cardboard boxes, so in-ears are my way. I just have to find a way to get the bleed out of my system. I'm going to experiment with miking the drums from the inside, see if that helps. But I'll keep you posted. Thanks for watching.